Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is February 14th, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. And this is episode 478, I believe. We're looking at Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. I don't know if you can read that well. 1957, so it's a throwback. It's coming out from a Dark Horse Comics. Comes in at a whopping $3.99, and this is a one-shot, so I thought I'd take a chance on it. And on the cover here, we see some items that play into the story a little bit later on. Now, it is a one-shot. It is a recommend, but it isn't your typical Hellboy story. It's actually more like a short story. There's not going to be any violence or fighting or anything like that in this. There's not going to be any demon chasing, so to speak. There's no good versus evil. It's just, like I said, it's a short story in the style of O. Henry. So very well thought out, but it's not this action-packed thriller that you might come to think when you think of Hellboy. Okay, let's get into it right away. Let's see who worked on it. So it's Hellboy and the Bureau for the Paranormal Research and Defense. The name of this story is Forgotten Lives. And it's Hellboy is, of course, created by Mike Mignola. The story is by Mike Mignola and Chris Roberson. The art is by Stephen Green. The colors are by Dave Stewart. Letters by Clem Robbins. And the cover is Lawrence Campbell and Dave Stewart. Let's take a quick look at that cover again. We have a pair of bronzed baby shoes, some ring heirloom, a Bible that was gifted to somebody, and then this card with the red lobster claw on it. And it kind of pulls the story together. But there's no clues or anything at the beginning that would lead you to this. It's just a very interesting way to do this. Now, I don't know if you wanted to get the spoilers or not. Maybe you should dip out before I get to the end. But it starts out, there's a report of, this is taking place in 1957. There's a report from one of the cemeteries, what they call a potter's field. That's where they put the people that don't have any relatives or poor. There's no way, they just bury everybody in a trench. So it can be like 20 bodies in a sort of a mass grave, no headstone. It's just something that they did back in the day. Maybe they still do it today, but it was a potter's grave. So there's a story that this gentleman wants to check out. It has to do with an apparition seen at one of these potter's graves. They just want to see if it's anything dangerous or not. They lament about some people that they've known that have moved on. The whole thing's kind of this potter's, the graveyard and whatnot. And then when they finally go to this island, I believe it was Hart Island? Yeah, Hart Island. And this is where the potter's grave is located. They're met by I don't want to say he's the night watchman, but he's kind of the coordinator for this cemetery. And he's the one that mentions that there's this ghost around, and can you help us figure out what it's all about? Okay, we'll stop real quick. Here's Hellboy, The Bones of a Giant, a 4-point comics adaptation. So this is a trade done by Mike Mignola as well. I want to say that the art in here, I like it at times, and other times it bothered me a little bit. Like when you see a landscape like this, I think it looks awesome. This close-up's okay. A nice landscape again up there. But sometimes the characters are just distorted like this. The wild hair on him just kind of bothers me. His distorted head bothers me. Sorry. Here's an ad for Black Hammer Reborn, another trade by Jeff Lemire. On this one, they're calling it amazing, just flat out amazing. Patton Oswalt, our favorite. Okay, so the caretaker for the cemetery mentions that he saw the apparition there and it spooked him. He thinks it's going to mess up the operations as far as the new dead arriving that need to be buried by, they're using inmates to bury them. Now, that has no no bearing on the story at all, but you might think it does. So they stake out the the cemetery at night, and the night watchman comes by. And he just says, "Hey, what you guys doing here?" And they tell him we're looking for the ghost. He says, "Oh, yeah, that ghost is around here." He says, "There's a lot of ghosts around here, so it's just part of this whole cemetery deal." So they do see the apparition as they go up to talk to it. He says, "Remember me. Don't let my words be forgotten." And so they're like, and then he disappears. So they're trying to figure out what the heck does that mean. And it's kind of a scary looking thing. So the chief inspector here, or I can't think of what his name is, I apologize for that, says, let's go to, this is a newly buried grave. Let's go to see if we can go to the auction, because they auction off the belongings since no one claimed them. So they go through all these, and they have no idea because the graves are unmarked. There's 21 people supposedly buried in this grave. They have no idea who's who. And so they auction off a number of items. You see the ring there, the baby shoes, the Bible that was gifted back in 1877 for somebody. And finally, it's like a business card comes up, and Hellboy wants to bid on it, and he takes all the money he's got. Now remember, this is 1957. He has $17 on him, or $16 or $17, I can't remember. He gives it to Hellboy, and Hellboy bids the whole thing, even though there's no other bidders. And $16 or $17 back then in 57, that was a lot of money. That was like, man, that was like $150 today. So he overpaid for this card, obviously. And then they show him walking off. They're on their way to the court to find out, the court records to find out who is buried in the grave. They've already gone to this auction. And they show this gentleman or something up on this ledge, and I have no idea who he is because he doesn't play another part that I know in this story. But it's just one of those maybe red herrings thrown in there, get you off the track. So he finds out who is buried in the grave, and there's one name that stands out for him, but he can't remember why. So he's got this business card, and he realized there's a connection between the name and the card, and it was that as a boy he used to read creepy stories when he was growing up, back in the 30s, from the 30s pulps. And one of the stories was in something called Weird Detective, and he remembers that was the author's name. Now the author went on to become a security guard at Gimbel's department store and passed away from a heart attack there, and no one really remembers him. But he remembers him. Hellboy remembers the stories, reading them as a youth. And I guess he thought the stories were pretty good. So they're back at the grave, and they've kind of, nothing happens that night. They just decide to give up. And they walk off, leaving the graveyard alone, so they think. But as they do walk off, the apparition appears. It just says, "Thank you." So this was the security guard that died of a heart attack that actually wrote the weird stories that Hellboy remembered. So just the fact that remembered him kind of releases his spirit, and he's free to move on to the next plane. So it's a nice story. It's just not like a Hellboy story, the usual one. I did enjoy it, so I didn't recommend it. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Of course, as always, thank you for stopping by and watching this YouTube video review of Hellboy 1957, Forgotten Lives. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. May's book, The Only Way Out Is In, and it's a Jeff Lemire's book, so I'm not sure if this is this might be a trade at this point, or at least an ongoing series. Now, this is a new book coming out, Last Flight Out. Guggenheim is the writer on this, and it looks like it's some kind of dystopian future. Don't know much about it. An electrifying new sci-fi series by renowned writer Mark Guggenheim. There you go. Letters to the editors, and Cloaked with Mike Richardson, Jordi Armengol. The Myth, the Legend, the Lie. From the creator of The Mask and the writer of 47 Ronin and the artist of Offworlders. There you have it. That is the book. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you like this video, please like it. If you disliked it, go ahead and dislike it. I don't care. But I'd love to have you subscribe anyway. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. Please leave comments if you wish. And we'll see you next time at the Temple of Tomes. This is Indie Comics Jones bidding you adieu.